When I was first starting out with AI art, the thing that always stood out to me as being absolutely insufferable was the more you prompt, the more the AI gets confused. The more you try to give more words, the more context just robs you of all the other often prompts or labels you use. And so much of your effort, and so much of my effort when I was just starting out, was trying to get it just to look kind of like what I wanted. Now, a lot of people have just abandoned this entirely and just been like, here's a few things, give me 100 options, I'll pick from the 100. The issue with that is it requires an insane amount of volume, an insane amount of token use, and is ultimately unnecessary, and is honestly a skill deficit. Anyways, but thankfully with the new tools that have been added over the years, this is a problem of the past that not enough people know how to utilize or leverage or use. And you don't need to have all this complexity associated with it, like no needing to know the complexities of comfy UI and all of these weird things. And this kind of compositional problem almost always arises when you're trying to get an action type shot. Something as simple as two oxes like smashing into each other's horns, or I don't know, a person pulling out a sword. These are all things that you can download a lore to solve that specific problem, but it's ultimately not really necessary. And lucky for us, there's only two methods that we really need to master in order to understand how to solve these issues of having the right thing in the right place to have your vision come alive. And probably the vision of your client or the person who's demanding this level of skill from you. So the two methods I want to show you today is the patchwork method, which is the one that I like the most, and it's probably the one that if you have more Photoshop skills rather than artistic skills, you're going to lean towards. But I love the patchwork method, and of course there is the live paint feature within KRITA, which is for the more artistically inclined people to get the more compositional alignment that you desire. But let's start with the first one, which is a lot more my speed. But last, let me show you the results of just using prompting by itself, which can only get you so far. But let's get into it. All right, so as you guys can see here, this was the prompt that we used. Copy this, masterpiece, best quality, all the beautifying metrics, i.e. labeling to cull all the bad options. Again, we have words that we're trying to do to break things into place, like dynamic action shot, sword fight, two chaotic warriors clashing. It did not get at all. Sparks flying with the impact of blades. Once again, no luck, but they did get some sparks flying. Motion blur on the weapon, yada, yada, yada. Needless to say, no comprende. Did not really work well. We have a random hand here present. Yeah. We also have something like this. Also rough. And something like this, also rough. Again, it looks cool, like the artisan aspect of it is looking gorgeous because of the lures we're using. By the way, always like to say this, right at the top, the models that we're using is Plant Milk, as well as this fantastic style Laura called the USNR. Again, if you want any access to these Lauras or models, if you go over to our school community, you copy and paste the title of this video into our school community search bar, it will be the first thing that pops up. You click that thing, it will show you all of the Lauras and things used in this video. This is the other one. This is also a model constraint and a prompt constraint, but I thought it'd be something that a lot of people end up encountering. But essentially, it ends up working like this. You end up putting a bunch of things like two massive bucks smashing into each other's heads, except it's always slanted towards what your model is using. And you have to be really, really hyper specific. So eventually you could use words like two animals. Like you would need to reinforce that these are two animals. You would need to reinforce here that there's like no females, no human beings here, so that you would like definitely get an elk. But eventually AI works, but you also get this monstrosity of it trying to do two things, and it just becomes a weird, hyper weird mess, brother. Okay, rough, weird, we'll fix it, I promise, but alas. Which is more of like a movement heavy, like dynamic shot. Again, speed chase, cyberpunk aesthetic, one futuristic motorcycle rider, speed, leaning dangerously turn. Yeah, none of this stuff is going to actually, unfortunately, be applied. It's a bit of a bummer. So the first method is my favorite method, which is the actual patchwork vibe. So essentially all we need to do is give it a general baseline for what we're trying to do so it knows where to put all of these things. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go over to Google and we're going to find two bucks smashing into each other with antlers, which should be pretty easy to find. All right, so we have our kind of scrapbook thing right here. We have this, which is fantastic. We're going to zoom in a little bit. Hopefully we can get away with most of this. We zoom in just a little bit more so we get more detail. Like this. Then we're going to hit this. We're going to basically make sure we have line art enabled within our control nets. Then we're going to hit this. That's going to give us a nice outline for all of that. And we're going to hope that's enough for it to build off of. Erase this a little bit just so there's no harsh lines. Erase this a little bit just so there's no harsh lines. Now we hit our control net and we'll see that. So there we go. Now we have no longer harsh lines because all it's focusing on is those kind of lines that it can interpret, right? So now we're going to do this. We're going to turn that off, but we still have all this blank space here, so we're just going to really quickly fix that by just taking whatever colors are here and painting that in, just so that there's some sort of contextual thing here. So it understands that these colors are supposed to be an extension of that. We'll do that. We might actually add just some sort of color here with like blues so that it actually understands that there's supposed to be some sort of sky there. Now we're going to hit generate right after we make sure it's really adherent. Yeah, so we want to make sure it's really adherent to the line art. We'll decrease this if it ever gets too adherent, right? Now we're going to hit generate. See, that's significantly better. Significantly better. And this was it without it. This was with it. Again, we see those beautiful trees, all the things that are nice about our prompt, but now we have something at least in the same guise as what it's trying to get after. And we can actually render that significantly more. But actually, I like everything else associated with this. So all I'm going to do is just going to kind of like lock into a lot of this and go with this. So I don't want it to take so long to render. We could also decrease at this point. We could decrease the level of strength or adherence to the image, or we can decrease when it basically stops using it altogether, which we could turn this down to 50 if we wanted. We want a little bit more difference. Let's go with 65. Yeah, see, this one's actually really good. So basically, it's always a seesaw game where our line art was good, but not great. So if we take off all of this stuff and we show our line art, which was right here, it's okay, but it's not very great, right? Like it looks kind of muddy. It was low resolution when it comes to the pixelization rate. So that's why this one ends up being really nice. And we actually might want to swap our thing with that. We actually might want to keep that one instead. But this one, it doesn't look so great. This one we'll keep. So we'll do this, and we'll apply the old one in the background, and then we'll just blend this together. And this will make it so we have even more consistency, so that we kind of get everything that we're trying to get after with all of this. So we don't want those hills or those mountains. We kind of like what we had beforehand. So now we're gonna hit one more control net, boom, it's going to see, and this is gonna give us much better lines, much better things to interpret, right? And now we're gonna go to this, turn that off, and now we're gonna max that out again. We are going to increase the we can keep it low actually, see if it can build off anything cool. So we're gonna keep that at 50%. So basically what it's doing is it's using this adherence to this overall lines, and then it's stopping halfway through so that it can kind of build out everything around it. So let's give that a little bit more of a minute. And this is what I would essentially call the patchwork method. This is essentially what we got from our final pass, which again, we got the better structure from our thing, and now everything looks much more clear. You can see all of the beautiful designs on the, of course, deer smashing their antlers together. Fantastic there. The next thing that we can do is the thing that, if you watched our live painting video, you know, boy, am I the best artist ever. No, I'm not. That's why we use this. That's why I like the patchwork method. But let us go over to, of course, the swordsman prompt of 2 clashing swords, which by the way, we could also just Google 2 swords impacting and we could be fine. You could also just like generate a ton of images with that only being the specific thing you're asking for it. So you're not trying to bog it down with like these particle effects. You just be like 2 people sword fighting. Person 1 holds sword. Person 2 holds sword. Clashing swords happen. Render that for 5 times, and one of them should be one of those. And then you just take the overall lines or composition of that, and then use that as your base, blow it up, and now you have that good. Now you can add all your beautifying metrics. So it's like a 2-pass thing. Or you could have some artistic capacity. And just use the live paint feature. Oh boy, buckle up, Buttercup. Love this. I'm gonna love this. So we are going to use the prompt that we used last time. We are going to go over here to our live paint feature. If you have no idea what live paint is, we made a whole guide on it. I would actually highly advise that video. The reason why is because there's a special lore that we use and a specific template that we use that supersedes almost all templates and lores. Which essentially, just TLDR, it's something like this. If you wanted just to Google search this on Civitai, you'll find it. But this essentially is the main thing that lets live paint work with any SDXL model. And we're particularly using plant milk for this one because it just ended up looking quite nice. So that is why we use that. But now, let's do this. Mother Mary, save me, all that. Once again, I am just kind of winging it here, gang. Boy, I hate me so much. You have no idea right now. All right. Listen, man. It is what it is. It's rough, all right? But God, help. Oh, wait, we got to take off the control. All right. All right, we finally got a doghouse. Don't ask. I hope I made that quick. Boy, boy. This is really where you have any understanding of composition or anything, of like how the body, physics, all that works. Holy moly. Oh, we've gotten out of the doghouse. Hands still look fucked. But anyways, we have something Just something, gang. All right, so as you guys can see, we finally have something that it resembles two clashing swords, two warriors doing that. The faces are not in alignment, but we can easily fix that just through some easy tweaking and things like that. But I ultimately like what this looks like. So we are going to go over this. We're going to fix up some stuff, like the fact that she's looking off weird is weird. We need to look at each other. And the fact that we're going to make a line art of this so that we can fill in and get all the good stuff, such as a lot of the stuff that was in this. We just need to get these overall lines and it can fill in the background. But for right now, we need to fix her looking off. So she's the one I can actually adjust. So we're simply going to duplicate this. Read too much about this. Could go more into it if we wanted, but we're just going to kind of, now we're going to hit duplicate. We're going to hit this. Now we have only that selected. Fantastic. Now we are going to take this and just tilt it. Looking at what's her name. Is that about right? Too much. But that looks fine. Once again, we are only interested in the lines, so everything else doesn't really matter as much. Fantastic. Now if we go over here, we blend this, some of that in there. This, because we want that sword, and we're stopping that from being visible. Fantastic. So real quick, just in case we wanted to make this look a little bit nicer, I just want to show you guys that we can go back and get that. So we are basically just selecting this, so only thing that will be rendered is in this little phase right here. That's significantly better, and everything blends with the neck that we kind of made sloppy right here. We'll say that's good. Okay, so now that we finally have something that we like, we're going to go back to our baseline model, such as this one around here. Boom. So now that we have something we like, we can go over here. Go to a line art. We already have a line art. Now we can just do this. Boom. We're going to also make sure it adheres quite heavily to that. We're going to do this. And now that we finally have everything, we have two people who are clashing swords. We have the overall composition that we'd want. And we did that via drawing and painting. So we have this girl who's kneeling down, blocking a sword with this really tall girl coming crashing down. But now all we need to do is basically, and actually I would like to leverage just the coloration of this. So we're going to actually apply this. And now we are going to run the same thing, but now it has a lot of good lines to build off of, which is this right here. Boom. So this is what it's looking at. But this is the pixels and colors that I wanted to kind of leverage and use. Let's generate two of those and see if we can't get the composition that we want with the thing that I was trying to ultimately get, which is two people clashing swords, boom, and sparks coming off of those said things. Let us see if it can cook. Whilst this is rendering, bathroom break. I haven't eaten any food today. I just fucking slammed an energy drink. What a bad idea. Anyway, all right, let's see what we got. Ooh, significantly better, boyo. Ooh, significantly better. And we have that looking absolutely fantastic. Okay, so now let's just have some fun and throw them through some different control nets. Not control nets, sorry, models. Throw them through different models. So let's actually increase the prompt weight of that by an exponential amount so that we have more softer light. We'll do one of those. We will do another one using the perfect illustrious, and we'll see how that fares.
By the way, me in editing land, holy shit, I need to zoom in on the canvas more. I apologize. I'm so much more into the technical things. I'm not focusing on showing you the cool result. I apologize. Next time, we'll try to be better. Alas. I hate it. I'm editing around it. It's rough.
All right, so this first one is just using the plant milk and the, of course, model that gives us a really nice art style. And you guys can see that looks fantastic. Again, it's exactly what we were kind of hoping. It has the same stylization and the color of, where are you? This one. Right here, same kind of overall color, nice impact. And again, that was mainly because we used this as a background thing, so it's basically using all the colors and pixels here. But alas, it looks fantastic, really great. And you could do this 1,000 different ways. You could like tilt to their head and then render it again so everything kind of blends, or you could literally go in there and like same thing with we did with the live paint feature. You just make sure they're looking at each other. I probably could use more prompts in there, but I'm trying to not use as many prompts. I'm trying to show you that you can actually use a lot of things that aren't prompts to get a much better effect. So kind of split here a little bit, trying to show you that this is how much leverage just positioning things in the right way and having a control net in the background does versus prompting everything. And again, unless you're doing such a scatter shot, you're hoping that it prioritizes that keyword more than others. Even if you increase the prompt weight, that also means you're decreasing all the other stuff. So you're never going to get everything unless you use it all, and you can let it focus entirely on, like, for instance, it's not confused where everything is in this moment. So it's able to really nail those exploding beautiful colors and all those things because we're not weighing down the prompt with compositional constraints, I guess is a good way to put it. Yeah, so this one is using perfect illustrious. Pretty good, different, beautiful in a different way. We've got the lights shattering, we've got the background looking really neat. Once again, if we increase the pixel density of this would also look very cool. But the one thing that I do want to see if we can do and add, oh, and that one looks really, really cool. What was this one? Let me see. This one was plant milk just at a default without any of the LoRa that adds that nice like smoothing effect, which is really cool. Very, very happy with it. Again, this is something that has so much detail and complexity that would really help from higher resolution. So if I did want to render this in higher resolution, you'd be able to get much more textures. This lady wouldn't like look all mushy. It's just because there's not enough pixels to actually be able to apply those patterns. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, if you were thinking while watching this, wait, couldn't you use both? Absolutely you could. That's probably a more complex, fully formed workflow, but essentially, yes, you could essentially use some of the images on Google or whatever and throw them into Live Paint, and that could be your backdrop. And honestly, that's probably a better building board, or jumping off point, sorry, than my dumbass having to paint in a horrible way just to be like, yes? Yeah. So that's a much better way to go about it. If you just go and use both methods, I think that's actually probably the best way to go about it. But alas, I expect the next couple of videos to be about solving distortions, which is the thing that a lot of people are asking me about, which it's one of the things I found out really quickly because it was such a problem, but I didn't know it was that. I thought most people knew. Anyways, my own ignorance aside, if you did want any of the LoRa's used, the models used, once again, if you head over to our school community, you answer a few questions so that we can prove that you're not a bot, because otherwise it'll be rife with bots. You go over to search, you type in the name of this video into there, it will show you a bunch of links to all of the models and LoRa's we use, as well as at our school community, there's a ton of free resources, a comprehensive beginner's guide that lets you install KRITA, shows you what models you probably want to install, the whole gambit, as well as a fun little thing that I made called the KRITA AI Artist Arsenal, which hopefully some of the things you're seeing on screen seem interesting. You can check it out and see if it's for you. Thank you kindly for your time. I hope I can see you in the next video, and goodbye for now, my friends.